did you get into it? Do you come from a folks who love politics and history?
Basically, I ran away from home to go to college. What Stacey Abrams did in Georgia, she actually killed a Democratic strategy.
When did you start to break big?
Acquired a vocabulary to account for my father's rage. Boom.
Give me your Mount Rushmore of the greatest orators that you've ever heard.
Oh my goodness.
Hey family, it's Carlos Watson. I've got one of the best thinkers, one of the biggest thinkers in the world today, Dr. Eddie Glaude Jr., award-winning author, professor at Princeton, commentator on MSNBC. What an interesting person. You're gonna love meeting him. You're gonna love what he has to say.
The Carlos Watson Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance.
Eddie, how are you?
I'm doing well, Brother Carlos. How you doing?
Where are you right now? Are you at home? Are you where I last left you?
Yeah, I'm at home. I'm in Lawrenceville. Haven't done it much outside of this little space in my home office.
I don't know if you know, but I love basketball, and Jersey's been a place that always was rich in basketball. A young fellow named Dwan Wagner and Billy Owens and a whole bunch of
Yes.
Jay Williams and a whole bunch of Kyrie is from there. Bobby Hurley and his pop.
I know that world well. My son was a D1 caliber basketball player, and we used to work out with Dwan Wagner's trainer down in Camden. I coached my son's AAU team I was an assistant coach when he was about 10. And Karl Anthony Towns was on, they made it to the championship game, and Karl Anthony Towns was on the other team. I've seen so much talent. 4 or 5 of those kids made it to the NBA.
Dr. Eddie Glaude Jr. is a distinguished professor at Princeton University whose acclaimed work takes a wide look at the difficulties of race in the United States and the challenges our democracy faces. Leaving his home in Moss Point, Mississippi at age 16 to begin his studies at Morehouse College, he now holds a master's degree in African American Studies and a PhD in religion. The New York Times bestselling author is known for Democracy in Black, How Race Still Enslaves the American Soul, and In a Shade of Blue, Pragmatism in the Politics of Black America. Dr. Glaude is also a columnist contributing to Time Magazine, Huffington Post, and a frequent panelist on programs like MSNBC's Morning Joe and Meet the Press.
Be fearless! We can do it! I believe in you! We can do it faster!
The Our Home is the training ground for her dreams policy. Insure carefully. Dream fearlessly.
You know, let me jump into it because I love politics. I love politics. I love history. I'm also the son of a political junkie. How did you get into it? Do you come from a folks who love politics and history?
No, I'm a country boy from the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. My mother had her first baby in the 9th grade. My daddy delivered mail and was the second African-American hired at the post office. But as soon as we heard the garage door open, and remember, he worked for the post office, so that's hot cotton back in the day. Everybody went to their corners because we had to leave him alone. We didn't know what kind of mood he was in. But the rage was really expressed in his views of race, Carlos. He didn't suffer white people. I got a language to understand him when the first time I read Malcolm X's autobiography.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet?
So I was 16 years old at Morehouse. I'm reading Malcolm's autobiography and I go, damn, this is what was going on with Dad. Wow, I get it. It took him a while before we reconciled, but I got an understanding of why he was so angry. He was putting something in me so that I could do what I do right now.
We are right back where we've always been, where we have to make a decision whether or not we're going to be a racist nation.
Politics didn't come to me through my parents or my environment. I just kind of gravitated to it. I was involved in local campaigns in my town, in my hometown. I was involved with the YMCA youth legislatures. You know, the YMCA would invite students from all over the state to take over government. And I was elected the first Black youth governor of the state of Mississippi. I actually went as a special guest of the Democratic Party of Mississippi to the Democratic National Convention.
More families in trouble, more and more people who need help but can't find it.
When Mario Cuomo delivered the Tale of Two Cities speech, when
84.
Jesse Jackson in 1984 in San Francisco, California, I was right there.
So Jesse Jackson thought I was a stalker because I memorized that speech.
Use hope and imagination as weapons of survival and progress.
And I ran up to him at an airport, and his security literally started surrounding me because they were like, who is this weird kid reciting his speech back to him? But I thought that speech was so powerful, so human.
Right. I remember his delegates booing Andrew Young and Coretta Scott King. I remember the Gary Hart signs and the Walter Mondale signs and all this other stuff. So politics kind of took its root in those early days, but not because of my family, but because of those experiences.
What was happening in '84 and you being involved in Mississippi there, did that say to you, I'm going to get involved in politics somehow? Or did that say to you, this is interesting and who knows whether or not it'll be a part of me, but this is interesting?
The language I would use now, I had a sense of calling on my life, I think, that I wanted to speak to the conditions of everyday ordinary people. So when I left home, I ran away from home to go to college. So I went to Morehouse. And when I got to Morehouse, I became the vice president of the Young Democrats of the state of Georgia. And I started thinking about the reality of Black life in this country. I acquired a vocabulary to account for my father's rage, to understand why my town looked the way it looked. My world just expanded. And suddenly my conception of politics went beyond, formal politics. And I started imagining myself in a different way.
When did you start breaking through, Eddie? When do you feel like this career that has professor, that has author, that has public commentator, intellectual, in your mind, when did you start to break big, as we like to say?
One piece I wrote, Carlos, that really struck the Black Church is Dead. I wrote an essay entitled The Black Church is Dead for the religion page of the Huffington Post. It got pulled into the New York Times. Suddenly I get an agent who says, I think you can write a book for a broader audience. Boom.
Right. So in the book, I talk about the Great Black Depression. I talk about, the fact that over 38%, 40% of Black children are growing up in poverty. I talk about the downward mobility as African Americans experience the loss of incomes, the inability to dream big dreams for their children because they can't make ends meet.
If you try to tell other young people who are trying to navigate for themselves, what do you tell them today? And understanding that lots of people have different journeys and not everyone is going to become an impactful intellectual and scholar. People will do other things, but what do you try to tell them about dreaming fearlessly?
The world conspires to make you small. The question is whether you're going to be complicit. That's the first thing. Then if you're not going to be complicit, then you need to listen to John Coltrane and take giant steps. So there's practice, there's dedication to the craft, there's learning what you need to learn, shoring up your foundations. Cornell told me something when I was a graduate student that I'll never forget. He says, Brother Eddie, if you don't do the work to prepare yourself in the beginning, you will spend a lifetime, you will spend a career trying to hide the gaps.
You have to try to ascend up the stairs to be a higher self.
So what did I begin with? I began with Bowden. It's the woodshed. I'm out there honing my craft. I'm not worried about who's looking at me. I'm trying to become the best intellectual I can be, developing my bibliography so I can then draw on a wide range of literatures to bring them to bear on the subject that I'm talking about. And then finally, when my moment comes, I'm actually ready. I'm not what they call in Jamaica force right.
Yeah.
That's not me. And it's a lesson that I learned also, Carlos, thinking about Jimmy Baldwin. Fame hit Baldwin early. And he had to grapple with it.
You want me to make an act of faith, risking myself, my wife, my woman, my sister, my children, on some idealism which you assure me exists in America, which I have never seen.
So what I say to young people, do your work, do your homework, engage in the ongoing work of preparation so that when you're called, when your time comes, you're ready. And then you can have a sustained presence as opposed to a blip.
We walk around these spaces as if somebody has engaged in a charitable gesture by letting you in here. The only favor they can do for you is to get you through here.
What was going on at Morehouse, at Spelman in the late 80s, early 90s that gave us not only Eddie Glaude Jr., but Raphael Warnock, Stacey Abrams, Rosalind Brewer, a whole suite of people. How did we get the CEO of Walgreens, an endowed professor at Princeton, a U.S. senator, soon to be a governor? What was happening there? Was something special happening?
Not only it was the 80s, it's the height of that kind of golden age of Black nationalism and hip hop.
Yeah.
So a lot of folk were going to HBCUs, and we were all there at the same time. Many of us, some of my partners were actually in School Days when Spike filmed.
Oh, is that
did
right?
The film,
Okay.
shot the yeah, right there.
Wake up!
Folk were coming out of the anti-apartheid movement. Folk were kind of grappling with questions of identity. And there was just this sense of expectation of excellence.
Who catches your attention on the national or international scene these days? And I purposely am making it a wide open question. I'm not asking you just on a university campus or just in politics, but like, who has caught your gaze? For someone who has thought about, studied, written about, analyzed so many different kinds of people, who stands out to you? Who's intriguing to you? Who should the rest of us be paying attention to?
One would be, of course, the work that Reverend William Barber has been doing. There is a sense in which, if we want to think about who's carrying the mantle of king,
White people against black people against brown people when we need to be allies.
what he did in North Carolina with the Moral Mondays movement, and what he's been doing with the Poor People's Campaign, and the way in which he's putting forward this kind of prophetic, progressive vision is just really fascinating to me.
This is nothing compared to what people in the past have had to deal with.
And I would say alongside of Reverend Barber would be Stacey Abrams and what she's been able to do within politics. So what's so interesting about what she did in Georgia isn't so much the election of Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. She actually killed a Democratic strategy. If you think about 1992, Bill Clinton and Sam Nunn are standing in front of Stone Mountain with a whole bunch of black prisoners in green striped suits behind them. And this is the announcement of a certain Democratic DLC strategy. The triangulation that was so central to Clintonism, Stacey Abrams has made the argument convincingly, is no longer a viable approach, right?
Friends, we are still on the verge of history, and the best is yet to come.
And what we see is the organization of people power and black people power that's not reducible to the interest of black political elites, but actually is driven by what the needs of black communities. Those are the people that come to my mind.
Well, you are naturally going to lead me to my final question here. As someone who clearly likes oratory and is expert at it himself, go ahead and give me your Mount Rushmore of the greatest orators that you've ever heard.
It does not yet appear what we shall be.
Well, the first one is Reverend Gardner Taylor. If you haven't heard Reverend Gardner Taylor preach, he's the dean of Black Preachers College, without a note, and will take you to the heights. So Gardner Taylor would be first. Malcolm, given my own style, Malcolm would be second. King would be third. Baldwin would be fourth. And my fifth one would be Miss Ella Baker.
I had found a greater sense of importance by being a part of those who were growing.
It's still the night shift, just brighter. Still a night out, but everything fits in. Chevrolet, making life's journey just better.
But let me do a quick rapid fire with you if I can.
Sure.
Your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Marvel Endgame.
Your karaoke song?
Always and Forever.
Each moment with you.
Final question for you. If I was going to allow you to have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would you love to eat with?
Oh my goodness. It will either be Malcolm X or Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
You are the new Hemingway.
Espero ser el viejo.
Eddie, thank you for stopping by. This was too much fun. And like I said, I hope it's only the start.
I hope so too. I can't wait till next time, man. Take care. Thank you so much.
Hey, I really hope you enjoyed getting to know Dr. Eddie Glaude Jr. I've admired him watching him on MSNBC and CNN. Obviously felt honored to have him recently on our Real Talk, Real Change special, and just felt like he was the kind of person who I not only wanted to know what he thought about today, but I wanted to get more of his backstory. I hope you enjoyed hearing it. I loved his empathy for his father, or at least as he said, figuring out how to re-narrate that. We all often need to re-narrate our stories that can do good things. Hey, thanks again for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you have not. And remember that we've got a beautiful podcast. You actually hear the whole extended conversation. Don't miss it. I'll see you soon. Be safe. Tell someone you know and love that there's a good show they could enjoy. See you soon.